All right, Bryce is on here, and he says, I put on there, does the devil think he can win? Just paraphrasing, so I didn't have to type this all out. But he says, with knowing that the devil tried to have Christ killed through King Herod, as he knew what Jesus was coming to fulfill, and that the devil knows the scriptures better than us, thus he has to know his end is written about. Do you think he is actively trying to prevent what is written about in Revelation from happening, to push off his demise as long as possible, or does his pride actually make him think that he can prevail in the end? And he says, it's so hard for me to believe that the devil actually thinks he can defeat God. But is that just like when our hearts get hardened? It is crazy, though, because he's been in heaven. He still has access to heaven.
Right, yeah.
And he knows who God is. He knows he's created by God. He sees him, and yet he knows the word.
Yeah. He
knows what's going to happen, and he's still going to go after it, like he can win.
Yeah.
That's delusional.
Right. And, Bryce, I don't know the answer to that. The verse I think applies to that is Revelation 12:12, when it talks about Satan finally being cast out of heaven by Michael and his angels. And it says in verse 12, therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. And so there's some part of him, obviously, I mean, you have it there in Scripture, that knows what his end is going to be, and knows how long it's going to be, and knows how much time it's going to be. So that looks petulant to me. It looks like he's just being spiteful to me. But then on the other hand, when you've got this whole thing with gathering the nations of the earth against the second coming of Christ, I don't know. On some levels, I think he might be delusional. You got to be crazy to fight against God anyway. There's Jesus, when he was talking about the prodigal son, he says the prodigal son leaves the father and he spends his inheritance on hookers and parties and that kind of thing, drinking and that kind of stuff. And and then Jesus says, and when he came to himself, the point being that a person who would leave the father and go off into the world and do those things is on some level not thinking straight. It says when he came to himself, then he said, the servants in my father's house are better treated than me. And paraphrasing goes on with that whole thing. And so I think that there's an aspect of Satan's mind that's twisted in the sense that he's, like you said, he's delusional. Mm. But the Bible does specifically say that when he comes down at the midpoint of the tribulation period, that he has great wrath. And so now he's just being spiteful. And he's going to wreak as much havoc as he can before it's time for him to go into the abyss. And so I think it's a combination of both, but I think he knows the word. And whether or not he wants to trust in it and believe in it the way that we do, he knows that there's truth to it. So I guess I don't know.
Yeah.